If we left right now, it would take them 20 years to rebuild. But we're not leaving right now. We're going to do it so nobody has to go back in 2 years or 5 years.
Everybody's focused on the headline that the U.S. forces destroyed Iranian boats in the Strait of Hormuz. But that's not the real story. The real story is this. Iran may have just tested the one thing President Trump cannot afford to lose: control of the world's most important shipping lane. The Strait of Hormuz is not just a strip of water on a map. It's one of the main arteries of the global economy. Oil moves through there, fuel moves through there, fertilizer moves through there. And when that lane gets threatened, regular Americans feel it at the gas pump, at the grocery store, and in the cost of everything that gets shipped. That's why Project Freedom matters. The United States is now trying to reopen the strait. Iran is warning foreign forces not to enter. Small boats are moving. Missiles and drones are in the air. And now the UAE is coming under attack. So the question's simple. Did Trump just draw a line in the water, or did Iran just set a trap to see how far America is willing to go? We're going to walk through what happened, why it matters, and what this tells us about whether the ceasefire is real or already starting to break.
Central Command says U.S. forces in the waters off of Iran have now been working to restore safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz. They are implementing the humanitarian project, which President Trump has now called Project Freedom. He announced it yesterday. CENTCOM posted this today. As a first step, 2 U.S.-flagged merchant vessels have successfully transited through the Strait of Hormuz and are safely headed on their journey. Iran state-run media this morning claimed the Revolutionary Guard hit a U.S. warship with 2 missiles. CENTCOM said, no, that did not happen. Iran then said it had fired warning shots. Meanwhile, back to the truth, the defense ministry of the UAE says Iran did shoot down, or it had to shoot down 3 missiles offshore as a 4th splashed into the water. We understand those.
So the UAE says they've got 3 missiles they had to shoot down headed towards them. The UAE just left OPEC, so that's probably where this retaliation is, and their allies of the United States. And now we've got confirmation from CENTCOM that we sank 6 Iranian small boats attempting to interfere with commercial shipping. This is going to get a little heated really quick.
Since this U.S.-Iran ceasefire was brokered 4 weeks ago, Iran is actually initiating attacks right now. We know that the United Arab Emirates missile defense system is activated. 4 missiles were fired from Iran to the UAE. 3 were shot out of the air, intercepted over the sea. The 4th fell into the water. We also know that Iran has launched drones against the United Arab Emirates, one hitting an oil facility in Fujairah, sparking a fire there. 2 other Iranian drones hit an empty oil tanker as it made its way through the Strait of Hormuz.
So you see the photos of this 4-star admiral, CENTCOM Commander Cooper. He visited the Middle East yesterday. He took an Apache helicopter and flew it himself through the Strait of Hormuz to get a bird's eye view for his own information.
Right now, to safely guide an estimated 800 cargo ships and tankers and 20,000 crew members out of the strait. Admiral Cooper says that CENTCOM has defeated multiple Iranian ballistic missile launches, drones, and has sunk 6 Iranian small boats this morning. CENTCOM is strongly advising Iranian forces to stay away as it guides ships through what the U.S. is calling.
Okay, so here's what we know so far. The United States launched Project Freedom to help reopen commercial shipping through the Strait of Hormuz. On paper, that sounds simple. In reality, it's anything but. This is happening after Iran used the strait as leverage during the war and the ceasefire that followed. According to the Associated Press, U.S. forces moved to protect commercial vessels trying to pass through the strait. So this is happening all in real time. Iranian small boats entered the picture. Missiles and drones were also part of the threat environment, and U.S. forces reportedly destroyed 6 IRGC boats. Now that sounds like a military headline, but strategically this was a test. because the first ships that move through a contested sea lane are not just carrying cargo, they're carrying a message. And the message from the United States is this: Iran does not get to decide who moves through international waters. To understand why this matters, you have to understand the Strait of Hormuz. This is one of the most important choke points on Earth. It connects the Persian Gulf to the open ocean. That means oil from the region has to move through this narrow lane to reach global markets. And according to U.S. Central Command, roughly a quarter of the world's oil trade at sea moves through that corridor, along with major volumes of fuel and fertilizer, natural gas. So when Iran threatens the strait, it's not just threatening a few ships, it's threatening energy markets around the world. It is threatening shipping companies. It is threatening insurance rates. It's threatening supply chains. And once those costs rise, they do not stay in the Middle East. They come home. That is part a lot of people are missing. And that is how this missile trail over the Persian Gulf can turn into higher prices for working Americans.
Of the strait. We just received a briefing with CENTCOM Commander Admiral Brad Cooper just back in Tampa after a quick trip to the Middle East to meet with sailors and airmen currently blockading Iranian ships from leaving Iranian ports and the Persian Gulf, and clearing a path through the Strait of Hormuz and guiding commercial vessels through the strait. Admiral Cooper confirmed that 2 U.S. vessels crossed the strait this morning and that Iran's IRGC fired cruise missiles and drones at those commercial vessels and at the U.S. destroyers in the Arabian Sea, but all were intercepted and shot down. Admiral Cooper said U.S. attack helicopters blew up 6 IRGC fast boats today.
And the small boats were all going against commercial ships, and all were sunk by Apaches and Seahawk helicopters. We have gone through the strait today. As we sit here right now, we have multiple U.S. Navy guided missile destroyers operating in the Arabian Gulf.
87 countries have ships stuck in the Persian Gulf. Admiral Cooper says the U.S. government.
87 countries have ships stuck in the Gulf, and we're the only country that's doing anything about it. Think about that for a second. But the other thing I want you to realize is Iran does not have to defeat the United States Navy to create pressure. That is the key point. Iran only has to make the strait look dangerous enough that commercial companies will hesitate. Shipping companies do not like risk. Insurance companies do not like risk. Energy markets do not like risk. So Iran's strategy is not always to win a battle. Sometimes the strategy is just to create enough chaos that everyone else starts pricing in fear. And that is what makes this moment so dangerous. It's like the price gouging whenever we have like a hurricane or an earthquake or any of these other natural disasters. But what makes this a little dangerous to the Navy is these fast boats, these drones, these missiles, these threats, the warnings. We have to be on a defensive posture 24/7. We have to be at our utmost best all the time. Iran only has to get lucky one time. And the attacks near the United Arab Emirates, launching missiles across the Gulf at them, it sends one message. Even if there is a ceasefire, Iran still wants leverage. And that's where this becomes bigger than one naval incident. Because if Iran can claim it is respecting a ceasefire while still making the strait too dangerous to use, then Iran gets the best of both worlds. It gets diplomatic cover. It keeps economic pressure. That's the game. So I think Project Freedom is Trump's answer. Project Freedom is his method to release some of this pressure. And by it being now a humanitarian mission, this changes everything. Because Iran is now openly attacking innocent ships leaving the strait that they don't control because they have lost all control of these international waters. Now, whether you support escalation or not, this is the hard reality. If America allows Iran to control the strait through threats, then Iran wins. And they win without needing to actually win this war, win this conflict. That is why this mission matters. And it's not just about escorting ships. This is about proving that Tehran cannot shut down a global artery every time it wants leverage at the negotiating table. You know what OPEC does. They lower production when oil prices go down to raise them, superficially. This is also where the danger comes in, because every ship that moves through that strait is now part of a larger message. Every Iranian fast boat that approaches becomes a decision point. Every drone track matters. Every missile warning matters. That means Project Freedom is not just a military operation. I hate to say it, but it's a credibility test for Trump, for the ceasefire, and for the idea that international shipping lanes cannot be held hostage by hostile regimes. This UAE attack changes the entire equation. I'm going to show you here on the map how this works. Okay, so what you've got here, this is a map of that area. And I want you to look at this little mushroom cloud right here. And when you zoom in, it says 6 Iranian small boats were destroyed this morning, according to CENTCOM. Now look where this is in location to the actual Strait of Hormuz. It's at least, I would say, 80 kilometers outside of the Strait of Hormuz. Iran wants to extend this pressure. You can see here this other symbol, this bomb facility. This is where Iranian media said that they launched missiles and hit American warships. We know that's not true. Now, the other thing I want you to take notice of is right here. You can see this is another tanker that has been moving out. And then here on the coastline of the Arab Emirates, these are the air defenses. And you see how many air defenses that they have that they are trying to maintain, because Iran is just going to continue to lob ballistic missiles across the strait here. We can't really allow this to happen. When the UAE comes under attack, that matters, because the UAE is not just another border country in the region. It's a major economic hub as well for energy. It also has key infrastructure around Fujairah, which is important because that area gives the region an outlet outside of the Strait of Hormuz. So if Iran is pressuring the strait and also threatening areas around the United Arab Emirates, that's not random. That is strategic messaging. And Iran is basically saying, even your backup routes are not safe. And that is why the ceasefire is being tested right now. Not just with words, not with diplomacy, but with missiles, drones, boats, and pressure on the global economy. This is the part that should concern people, because a ceasefire can exist on paper while the battlefield keeps moving in practice. And if that is what Iran is doing here, then Project Freedom is not just a reopening of a waterway, it's exposing whether the truce is real. Trump has a really difficult spot here, a bit of a dilemma, because it puts him in a position, if he does nothing, Iran learns that it can threaten the strait, squeeze the global economy. But if he responds too aggressively, Iran can claim America broke the ceasefire. That's the trap. Iran wants the benefits of a ceasefire while still keeping the pressure on the sea lane, and Trump is trying to do two things at once. Number one, reopen the strait and avoid turning this into a larger regional war. That is a very narrow lane to sail through, and that is why the next few days matter, because this is where strength and restraint have to work together. Too little strength, and Iran keeps testing. Too little restraint, and the ceasefire collapses. That is the balance Trump is trying to strike, and whether people like him or not, that is the actual strategic problem in front of him. So here are three things I would watch next. Number one, do commercial ships actually start moving again? Because if the U.S. Navy opens the lane, but shipping companies are still too afraid to use it, then the mission is only halfway successful. Number two, Does Iran keep using gray zone attacks? That means drones, small boats, mines, missiles, or proxy attacks. We haven't found any mines, or if we have, it's not been reported, so they could very well still be drifting around there. Anything that creates danger without officially ending the ceasefire is bad. And number three, do other countries join the mission? If this stays only America versus Iran, Tehran will frame it in one way. But if more countries join because they need that shipping lane open, Iran has a much bigger problem. Because at that point, this stops looking like a U.S.-Iran standoff and starts looking like the world telling Iran, you do not get to choke off global trade. So in closing, here's the bottom line. Iran just tested the Strait. Trump answered with Project Freedom. And now the world is watching to see who controls the water. Because this is not just about one destroyed boat, one missile trail, or one shipping convoy. This is about whether a hostile regime gets to hold the global economy hostage every time it wants leverage. And for Americans, that matters. Because when the Strait of Hormuz closes, the cost does not stay over there. It comes here. It comes through energy prices. It comes through shipping costs. It comes through food prices. It comes through the pressure working families already feel. So the real question is not just whether Trump can reopen the Strait. Real question is whether Iran believes he is willing to keep it open. That is what we're about to find out. And I would say the next 24 hours are going to be very, very important. I believe that Trump is trying to empty the Strait enough with these 850 ships for some other plans, some probable kinetic strikes. That's my prediction. You can hold me to it, but I believe we're going to see that in the next 24 hours. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it. Smash a like and subscribe. Hit that bell notification so you know whenever these new videos come out. And consider the join channel as a member. You get access to a Discord. There's a lot of people in there just like you that are wanting to keep track of everything. I appreciate you watching. I'll see you in the next one.